Welcome to Beyond the OR with Dr. Kevin Brenner. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. I want to take you beyond my world of plastic surgery, diving deep into exciting hot topics and delving even deeper into compelling characters that I've met along the way. We'll be talking with attorneys, actors, comedy writers, Navy SEALs, and many other fascinating and inspiring people with truly intriguing stories to share. So let's jump right in. Welcome back to Beyond the OR. We always strive to bring to you guys, our listeners, some really intriguing people that are not only intriguing to you, but intriguing to me. And especially when what they do for a living and what their life mission is something that sort of crosses with my life. That's how I find these things so interesting. And today is no exception. We have Kashif Khan, who is a little bit of a trailblazer in DNA sequencing. He is author of The DNA Way and founder of the DNA Company, which tests human genome for specific disease processes. And we're going to find out all about that. Kashif has been a longevity expert, and I am really, really excited to talk to you today. So welcome to the show, and I can't wait to pick your brain.
The pleasure. Let's start picking, man.
So, well, let's kind of like start with the elephant in the room. Tell us about the DNA Company. What is it exactly? How did it come to be, and how is it that it's such a interest of yours?
So the come to be part is important. That really tells a story, which is I first of all don't come from the industry, no formal training, was doing something very different. I ran a public relations company in Toronto where I helped technology startups grow, right? And that's what I was good at, kind of seeing what they didn't understand because they were young, had no experience, and I got sick. And in that journey of being sick, and this is what you see with a lot of sort of functional health type practitioners, it's kind of like nothing could help me, and I finally figured it out. And when I figured it out, I needed to tell everybody, right? And that's what happened to me is that I went to the naturopath. First of all, I went to doctors, 5 different doctors for 5 different chronic conditions, taking 5 different pills. And the one thing I asked, because I had never really been sick before that, was why? What did I do wrong? Did I eat something? Did I breathe something? It didn't add up that all of a sudden I had 5 different problems and I was never sick prior to, and that was 38, by the way, at the time. So long story short, fast forward, I found after a lot of digging that there was a broken code in my DNA. There was functions biologically that were suboptimal. And so there's certain jobs that my body just didn't do that my business partner and my friends were doing just fine. And so the same exposures didn't make them sick. And then I started to learn that things should be personalized. And it's a combination of your genome. Here's the way my body instructs certain biological processes with environment, nutrition, lifestyle, the load that you're then taking on, and that equals your net result. For me, it wasn't such a good net result, but I fixed it, and I'm healthier than I've ever been now. And that was what the DNA Company came out of.
So how did you take the leap from, I mean, your background is in PR, right? And you're an entrepreneur by nature. How did you get into genomic sequencing? I mean, that's like lab rat kind of stuff. I mean, I did bench research back in the day when I was in residency and stuff. It's very different than running a company, right? And it's also very different than having a format where you are now essentially helping people or guiding people to improve their health in one way or another, correct?
Yeah, and I think that it was kind of needed because the tool that even I use, by the way, the first genetic test I took, I thought this stuff sucks, like it doesn't work, because it was telling me you got an 80% chance of this, 20% chance of that. Like, this is my genome. Why isn't it 100%? And if you're telling me you got an 80% chance of some problem, why did 20% not get it? Isn't that the most valuable information you can give me? Which was completely voided out and not available, when I got the report back. So I think coming from the outside as a layman, needing to use the tool and needing it to be easy, right? Consumable, digestible. needing it to be actionable, which it wasn't. And this is the gap where you have amazing science, the guys on the bench, like you said, the guys with the textbooks, figuring out what is accurate, right?
Right.
What is the truth? What's the truth of the science? And billions of dollars were spent there. How do you apply it? That's a very different thing.
Right.
And at the time, I'm not saying that there wasn't genetic testing available. There was many multi-billion dollar companies available, but ask any clinician and they didn't use those tests because they said this stuff doesn't work. So
Well,
that was the challenge.
yeah, I mean, in medicine and surgery, we've had genetic testing in one form or another for various disease processes, in particular for cancer. I mean, probably the
Right,
most well known is cystic fibrosis. That was probably one of the first,
right.
genetic diseases that we published on. But it was never about, find out what genetic sequence or what genetic mutation you have in order to figure out how to live a healthy lifestyle. It was, how do we target this cancer based on which form of the cancer that you have? And it was still, and when I say this to you, I know how you're going to react because I've talked to many functional medicine physicians. The problem with Western medicine, with allopathic medicine, the way that I was trained, I mean, and the way all my colleagues were trained, is that we are reactive to whatever the problem is, not proactive. And what I have been seeing, and the reason why I'm so interested in you and your mission, is because I personally have been delving into this for the past year with my wife and my friends, on a sort of a longevity mission, and I'm relearning, so many things in medicine as relates to diet, environment, as well as genetic exposure, right? And because they're all interrelated, and I, we learn it somewhat in medical school, but we don't. It's not really driven home.
Yeah, 4 hours of nutrition class in 4 years, right?
Yeah.
A little bit more than that, but yeah.
But what you said there is exactly it. At the time, genetics was doing a really good job for genetic conditions, right? This gene equals that.
Right.
Be precise and very actionable. Now you need a treatment to manage that problem. But that's a tiny fraction of today's healthcare problems. The CDC says that 90% of our $4 trillion healthcare budget is spent on chronic disease management. None of that stuff is direct genetic cause. It is all in a combination of environment, nutrition, lifestyle on bad biology. So
Right,
the same
right.
exposure.
But our answer to that is, okay, change how much salt you take, and then, oh, by the way, here's a medication to take to control your blood pressure. Here's a medication to control your high sugar. Here's a medication for, you name it, right? You have asthma. Okay, let's put you on an inhaler, not figure out what's causing the asthma in the first place, but having you on medications lifelong for most people, right? I mean, that's the problem.
You're right on that. Let's use that to paint a picture. You mentioned blood pressure. So cardiovascular disease, number one killer, right? Still the biggest problem. So you have cardiovascular disease. There's some blood marker that points to cholesterolemia or some kind of precursor to a heart attack. Take this pill, right? Statin is now the number one prescribed pill. Reduce your cholesterol numbers.
I'm going through that right now.
You're on one now?
Yeah, I have hereditary high cholesterol.
Well, here's how we're going to get you off.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
And those, for some people, they're very useful. And I say this about a lot of things in medicine. For some people, they're useful, but for some people, it's really not healthy to be on some of these medications lifelong.
You have a direct connection between statin uses and dementia, right? They happen in the same line because your brain needs fat and cholesterol, and you're suppressing this important hormone that goes and repairs tissue. And that's actually the functional answer, by the way. So the allopathic answer is there's a marker high in your blood, cholesterol, that could eventually lead to blockage, plaque. Let's give you a pill to reduce the amount so there's less to cause plaque, right? The functional answer is, why was the cholesterol number elevated? Why is there plaque? What's going on here? So step one, there's a gene called 9p21 where we can determine the resilience of your endothelium. So here's your artery, these tubes around your heart. The inner lining is the endothelium. That's where your blood actually sort of touches and flows through, right? There's varying levels of quality of that hardware. And most of us, by the way, aren't doing well there. So suppose you have that. Step one, park that. I got bad hardware. This stuff, highly prone to inflammation. I might be wired that way. Now, something has to cause the inflammation. Because I could have this bad hardware and go live on a beach and have beautiful sunshine and fish out of the sea every day, and I'll never have heart disease, right? I have to trigger the inflammation. We live now in pollution, like you guys are in LA. I think 1 hour of LA traffic is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes in
Oh
terms of
my
the
God.
inflammatory load. Yeah. So now if you're taking that in every day, and guess what? Genetically, we can determine your capacity to filter inhalation airborne toxins from entering the bloodstream. We have varying capacity there also. So if you're not doing well here, I don't filter. My glutathione process does not block airborne toxins. I then have an inflammatory insult in my blood. I then have something to cause inflammation of this bad hardware if I do it for long enough. That's when your body starts to see, oh, inflammation in the arteries in the endothelium, this is not good. I'm going to send cholesterol there as a hormone to reduce it. It's like a Vaseline, smooths things out, right? It's a hormone. Then somebody like yourself who has hereditary bad cholesterol transport, there's a gene called ApoE, maybe when that HDL LDL process, send it, bring it back, send it, bring it back. When you send it, it in itself starts to oxidize and get damaged from the same toxin that caused the inflammation to the endothelium, and then it starts to build up and deposit and deposit. And then eventually, doctor says there's a number that's high in your blood. Here's a pill you need to take. The disease isn't cholesterolemia. The disease is inflammation of the artery. And if we knew that in a 5-year-old child, for example, I could have told you this about their genome, you would have known that for you, the airborne is more important, or maybe it's your gut, or maybe it's your hormones. What's that thing that causes inflammation? And where is the inflammation going to be experienced? That's what your genes can tell you. Then you know what to do with your environment, nutrition, lifestyle. And this thing just doesn't have to happen. It's really that simple.
So
Yeah.
basically, this is you with like the DNA way, right? That was your book,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then your company. Also, this is a great way to prevent, not just find your DNA or what can make you sick. Am I right? Can you get ahead of the game and
Oh, yeah.
do all this genetic testing ahead of time before? Because usually people get genetic testing when they get sick, but to be able to have that knowledge to prevent would
Yeah.
be amazing. So is that something that
So our company is quite clinical. Like we have a telemedicine platform and we're dealing with people that are sick that don't want medicine anymore, right? In a nutshell.
Right.
I, as an individual, work with groups, coaches, celebrities, professional athletes, CEOs on making sure they just never get sick. I have celebrities that are traveling from one country to another, have to wake up at 6 a.m. and, don't have energy, but they got to shoot. And like, how are they at their best? So we use their genome because it's not the same answer for everybody. We were literally on a set of a Marvel movie once while these guys are filming, popping supplements and pills and different combinations, by the way, depending on who we were dealing with, because we knew that genetically this person's biology was lacking this person's biology has too much of this. And so the supplements were tailored to what they actually needed to be at their homeostatic best. So yes, exactly. If for me, every child should be tested. Every child should know their human instruction manual, make every habit aligned to their biology. And the earlier you start, the less likely you're going to ever get sick. You're going to have optimal energy, libido, hair, skin, all that stuff, and prevent disease.
wow.
So tell me, if I'm a patient that is watching this now and is like, holy shit, this is what I need to be doing. Where does the rubber meet the road in terms of a patient coming in, going through the intake, they meet with somebody, and then you test them and you test the entire genome on everyone? Or are there specific tests that you tailor? You're like, based on whatever disease processes, whatever symptomatology that they have, are there specific genetic tests that you're like, okay, well, we need to be testing this, and this? I mean, like, I know, yeah, I listen also to Gary Brecka, and he's got like five genes that he's tests on everybody, right? All the methylation genes, et cetera, all the enzymatic processes. So
Yes.
are there some core tests that that or core sequences that you're looking at, or is it just kind of like you're mapping the whole genome on everybody?
So that in itself was a challenge. What do we test for? There's 22,000 genes, and we only test for about 90. And how do you rationalize that? Because we had to first look at everybody our research, by the way, let me take it one step back. The way our research model is executed was we said we need to actually meet with patients. Forget about DNA. There's enough academia out there that understands genetics. We need to actually sit in front of people and fix them. And every time we fix someone, that's a anecdotal N of one study for you. Like it's your
Right.
answer, which is why you wanted your genome in the first place, right?
Right.
We park that. And then we start to see these trends that people kind of fit in buckets, and that happened over and over and over again. And that became our database. So that what you said, like what you
Are
then
these
test.
the 5,000 patients that you were talking about on your website?
Yeah, it was 5, now it's 7,000 in terms of the research, right?
Right.
There's many tens of thousands who are customers, but the research that we actually sat with them, 7,000 in total, and then we stopped. So now from there we learn, here's the thing that we need to do with every single person to give them the answer to how to be your optimal best. And yes, methylation is one of them. So methylation plus glutathione, antioxidation. So all of your cellular health, how do I be the best anti-inflammatory type state I can, right? So that's one.
Right.
Then it's everything about mood and behavior. So that's what, like you said, Gary Brecka tests for. There's 5 additional things we think we need to test for, and we do. Diet, nutrition, everything about macros, micros. Should I be vegan? Should I be keto? My insulin response. How do I metabolize vitamin D and C? And what do I actually need at a personalized level? So that's the second one. Third one is mood and behavior. My innate cognitive wiring, my executive function. So how do I perceive the world and how does the world perceive me? To the degree where if I had your DNA, if I've never spoken a word to you, I can describe your personality to a T with full accuracy. I can marriage counseling, no problem. I can explain to you why you hold the grudge, why somebody's always picky. Like we know what's going on in the brain.
You're gonna have a lot of fun with my genome.
I'm not kidding.
How much
Yeah.
time do you have?
Yeah. Then the fourth area is sleep. So everything around, and sleep disruption is, I would say, too general of a statement. It's like I can't fall asleep, I can't stay asleep. I sleep through the night, but when I wake up, I'm not rested. Those are very different problems genetically. And the 2 additional areas are everything around hormones, which is, I would say, the one big thing we do that gets people unstuck, especially women. This is an area where people are stuck in their healthcare journey and there's nobody addressing it. I can't tell you how many women we deal with that are, infertile. They have endometriosis, fibromyalgia, migraines, crazy menopause. None of that stuff needs to happen if it's been dealt with properly. If we understand the unique metabolism of hormones, sometimes the hormones themselves can cause inflammation. So we need to look at all that. And the last area is all the chronic disease stuff we talked about. So not, hey, you got an 80% chance of Alzheimer's. We don't believe that's good enough of an answer. It's more like we see a red flag and priority for Alzheimer's. Now let's look at the underlying biology for why it's going to happen. Because if we address the why, then you just work on the why, and then it can't happen. And I can use that as an example to explain to you, but those areas are all of what we think everyone needs to know after doing this 7,000 times in research setting. And then all of this can be reinterpreted for the context of longevity. Okay, now I've dealt with all my problems. Now I'm optimal in terms of my potential, my genetic potential. Now, how do I add 10 or 15 or 20 years? Let's take this a little further.
Well,
right?
Yeah, and I guess my only axe to grind with that is it's not just about the actual quantity, actual number of years, although that's important, right? I mean, all of us would love to live a little bit longer, but it's the quality of those years that's so important. I mean, if you can live, 10 years that are quality versus 15 years where you're in shitty health and can't do much, which one would you choose?
For sure. And this is where we're at. The American expectancy is that this is taken for granted as normal now. By 55, you have your first chronic disease. By 65, you have 2. And you spend the last 15 years of your life in treatment. And by the way, 66% of American bankruptcies are based on healthcare costs now.
Yeah,
right?
well,
So
that's a whole nother show.
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
insane. Yeah, it's insane.
it's insane, and it's expected that this is just supposed to happen. You get aging and disease should not be interconnected; they're separate. Aging can't stop it. You can stop the pace. You can increase the quality, but this whole other side of disease is part of aging. I don't, from what we have now seen, absolutely not true. Unless it's innate, unless it's like you said, a genetic condition which you just have, like it's part of your genome. Majority of what we deal with is not.
Right.
So what advice can you give our listeners? I follow you on IG. You have a fountain, a wealth of information on your Instagram, from toxicity that they put in our food. Like I just saw your last post
It's
about
terrible, by the way.
the
I'm learning, reading, listening every day.
yeah.
I mean, I've been talking to Elizabeth about the changes that we've been making at home, and it's just like it's insane. I mean,
Yeah, it's insane.
Danny keeps getting upset with me because I keep coming home and I now read. Oh, my kids hate me. They absolutely hate me. There's nothing good for them to eat, or nothing good that tastes good for them to eat. I'm like, stuff that I thought was good, I'm like now reading every single ingredient in it,
Yeah.
and like everything with folic acid has been tossed.
Yep.
Everything with cyanocobalamin has been tossed. Like, I mean, I just never sometimes you just don't realize you start accepting
Don't
things
know.
as normal.
Yes. Well,
Yep.
because we're not educated on that.
And
right?
BHT, I saw your post about BHT too.
BHT, BHA also so common. And these are, by the way, very American problems. You take
Yes.
why is it that, oh, I go to Italy and I can eat bread and I feel so good? What happened?
Right.
Because American bread isn't bread. It's literally, foam that's meant to be made into yoga mats. Like it's the same stuff, potassium bromate. It's not food. So we have a very lax regulatory sort of environment. We have very powerful lobbying. You have 75% of sort of jurisdictions where there's a senator that can make a call. The biggest employer is either food or pharma.
We
know
that's what I was
those-
gonna say. The other problem is
Yeah.
all the pharma companies.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and-
why do you why do you think we're all taking medications for our life?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And so this is where, I mean, it's no surprise that about 2 weeks before Ozempic became the biggest thing on TikTok, an advisor to Biden's health sector or administration, or what cabinet, or I don't know what you would call it. I'm from Canada. We have different terms here. We have ministries. So came on 60 Minutes and said that obesity is purely genetic and has nothing to do with environment or lifestyle factors. It is a genetic problem. So if you're obese, you're just obese, and you need to take medication. This was from the federal government.
That's insane. Yeah.
Now there are genes that can point you in that direction. Now let me give you an example. There's a gene called FTO, which determines the efficiency of your gut-brain connection. So when some people are eating, they don't know when to stop.
correct.
It just takes a lot longer. There's also a gene called MC4R, which determines the satiety of your palate. So there's some people that will eat their meal, but they're not satisfied. They still need that cookie or the Dorito because their mouth. And this is actually a survival mechanism of someone in the past
I think that's
who didn't
me.
have food, looking for variety, right?
Yes.
So yeah. So now that person may be prone to eat more,
Right.
but
you still got to eat.
Sorry?
You still got to eat. I mean, it all comes down to calorie balance. I mean, you got to burn more than you're taking in, otherwise you're going to gain weight.
Yeah.
No matter what your genes are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yes, you may have tendencies towards things, but then if you know where the tendency is coming from, the why, again, not the what obesity, but why, then you know what to do. If you have a satiety problem, then the solution is you finish your meal, you have a little bit of soupy, salty, crunchy, and you get satisfied. Right?
Right.
You just need to create that satiety. So, and I can go on, we can talk about obesity for an hour if you'd like, but anyways, this is the environment we're in and we need to learn what's true.
I wanted to ask you about longevity medicine in general, right? I mean, this seems to be the trend. It's a trend. It's a trend in my life, maybe because I'm 52. But just in terms of learning about it and educating myself about it, even with 2 residencies and medical school, this is like all a lot of this is new information, and it's so rapidly changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What in your opinion are like the most important changes that are happening now, and what do you think is coming on the horizon in longevity medicine?
Sure. I mean, I think that fountain of youth has always been the sort of number one desire, right? It's just that we
Hey, I'm a plastic surgeon. You know, that's just what that's what I do.
yeah. And what we've now learned is that there are sort of, let's call them biohacks, right?
Right.
And that's where this really started, is this biohacking industry of understanding biology. Stop treating the body as something to react to symptoms with, but something that can actually be optimized and maintained. And that was the sort of foundation of biohacking. That then turned into longevity, and it turned into life extension and measuring biological age, which I've done on myself, those types of things. So it came from understanding supplementation, what's actually useful and what's not. It then turned into equipment, using red light beds to charge your mitochondria. Something as simple as a sauna being so potent for preventing a chronic disease, all the way up to regenerative medicine like stem cells and peptides and
Right.
and the future. If you want to hear about the future is happening right now, which is gene therapy. I'm working on a project right now where we know, for example, there's a gene called FOXO3, which what you would have learned in medical school is cellular senescence, the dying off of old mutated cells and the replacement with new cells, whether it's your skin, your kidney, your hair. You're a new version of yourself every so many months or years, depending which part you're looking at. Your cells regenerate and replace.
Right.
The efficiency by which we do that is driven by the FOXO3 gene. So a question came up, well, if I can speed up my FOXO3 gene expression as we call it, I have a certain version of the gene. What if I can make it work a little harder and I can do this job a little better? Instead of adding something constantly, what if I have an internal instruction or mechanism that's just constantly pushing harder? And guess what? It's possible. It's happening now. Gene therapy, where you can literally take an injection that has proteins sending certain signals and gene expression increases, and all of a sudden you have a change in your body. You have skin gets a little tighter, you have muscles get a little stronger. And so there's clinical trials happening on this stuff in South America. The US is really adverse to peptides and stem cells and all this stuff, but South America has really opened their arms to it.
Right.
And you're going to see the studies completed there, then they'll be transitioned here. But you already have a ton of Americans flying all over the place. And even within the US, you're seeing a lot of clinics doing this stuff, right?
Well, we have peptides. The FDA is just trying to regulate some of them, right?
Yes.
To classify them as medications so that they can regulate it, and I'm sure it all comes down to money.
Yeah, we don't want the government in our peptides.
But I mean, and peptides and supplements are great for certain things, but it's not the only thing. I mean, there's
not the only. No.
It's multifactorial.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's, it's not just what you're injecting. It's what you're eating. It's where you're living, what you're breathing, the water that you're drinking.
Yeah.
Because that could be a whole other show. And in addition to your genomic extraction.
Yeah, this is a big one, is that people, the way that we all grew up, the three of us, versus the way our kids are growing up, the world has changed dramatically, right?
Yes.
And we have not accounted for that. And so we are living longer, but we don't know what we're supposed to do with those extra years. We just take for granted that I'm alive, I should be good unless I do something wrong. We don't know yet that just walking out your door is already overexposing yourself. The level of just one thing, EMF, constant trickle of EMF signal from your phone, from cell phone towers, from the work we're doing right here, right now. You're on heavy duty Wi-Fi for this podcast to work. Like, it's constant, right? And our bodies were not designed for that constant. Our body was designed to walk barefoot on the ground and be grounded. Our barefoot on the ground is a tiny fraction of the 8 hours we're supposed to sleep on the ground. We now sleep on a bed elevated on the second floor of our homes, not getting the grounding that our body thinks is part of our daily routine that allows our cells to regenerate and recharge. We're electric beings, right? So there's stuff we don't do that our wires are waiting for, and there's stuff that we're doing and exposing ourselves to that we are not wired for, right? So that combination, even the best of us are still having problems. So we need to change our thinking on what we need to do for today's reality. It's not what it was like for, grandma's time anymore.
So I have a question. What
Yep.
lifestyle change or food or
Dietary.
diet or supplement should everybody, even though I'm sure everybody has everybody's body is different, but for our listeners, something that they could change that can maybe perhaps impact a small amount on their
Yeah.
body, on their health.
So this is not meant to be a plug or a segue, but since you asked the question, I just made something for that. Because, because
Good.
and it's not, it doesn't even exist yet. It's coming out. I don't know when this will air, but early 2024. Because of exactly what you just said. What's that thing that we need, right?
Yes.
And we don't realize what that is anymore. So it's actually a few things. I would say the number one thing is minerals. Our food is dead because our soil is dead. And so we're not getting the minerals we think. We take a lot of supplements, we eat organic, we do all that, but organic plants from dead soil is still dead food. It's not, there's no pesticides. It's
Right.
not going to cause you inflammation, but it
Yeah.
didn't give you the nutrient value that your body was expecting from it. And minerals, there's 102 minerals that our body needs. If you take the minerals out of our body, there's a puddle of water sitting there, right? That's what the human form is. So that's, I would say, the number one. Number two is gut. In our research, those 7,000 people, we were dealing with people that had problems, from hair loss to breast cancer to anxiety, a little bit of everything. 49% of them, now this is specifically people that are sick, right?
Right.
49% of them were missing the key gut detoxification gene. So it's not even about what version or how well, didn't even have the genes. So their gut had zero first line of defense to protect itself from what came along with the food, from plastics, packaging to everything.
This
right?
is this is the secretory IgA pathway, or is it something else?
Glutathione. So glutathione of the gut. So the GSTM1 gene literally will police what's entering the gut micro or the gut arena and try and find the toxic elements and remove them, right? And pass through the gut tract, pee poop them out through the liver, all that stuff. Some of us just don't do that, which is why there's so much leaky gut, IBS, Crohn's, colitis, all this stuff. So why do I say this? Because in the average population, it's around 5% of people that have this variant missing. In our studied sick population, it's 49% of people. So gut is really important. So I added a sprinkling of what we need for our gut, in terms of the right, lactobacillus, bifidobacteria, the key strains that we need to feel better without overdoing it. And then some people actually get irritated and bloated. So that's number two. So minerals, gut. Number three, I would say, is micronutrients that we also aren't getting from food, not minerals, but your phytonutrients, things like, for example, anthocyanin. If you look at the blue zones where people live over 100, and you look at, for example, Okinawa, and you look at their food,
Blueberries.
Blueberries, yes.
Right.
Potent
They all eat
anthocyanin.
blueberries.
Yes. Well, what they eat is purple sweet potato in Okinawa, which has the exact same anthocyanin that blueberries have, right? Potent antioxidants. So we don't get antioxidants because our food, although it is filling, has calories and has glucose, it doesn't have nutrients. So we need minerals, we need phytonutrients, we need gut support. The other big one is the way we live. Constant sort of stress, anxiety, depression, teetering between all these mental health words that everyone uses now. We need to adapt. We're not adapted, so you need adaptogens. Adaptogens are these plants that allow your brain to sort of manage stressors and what's going on. And the last thing I would say, which is probably should have been number two actually after minerals, is detoxification, liver support. Fatty liver is a major epidemic in the United States. Children have it now, unheard of, right? Because the food, like you said, the water, what we're consuming, what we're breathing is so toxic, our detox systems are overwhelmed and we need support. Our innate glutathione, antioxidative methylation, like you mentioned, pathways are not wired for today's reality. They're good systems, but there's so much more load. So I would say these 5 areas kind of everybody needs. Even if you're trying and you're eating organic and clean, you're still not getting these things.
Right.
So one more question before we wrap up. What can our listeners, if they wanted to find out their, how do you pronounce it? their DNA, their
Genomic expression.
genomic. Tell us what, like somebody that would want to find out, how would that work with your company, and like what is the pathway to find out?
Um, so the company is called the DNA Company, but I welcome everyone to go to my personal website since we're here together, right? The test is also available there. And that way, if you need my direct support, I have my own sort of clinical portal where I can actually help patients and manage people. So it's the same as my Instagram handle if you want to just learn more and understand what's going on in this world that's making you sick.
Okay.
It's Kashkhan Official, KASHKHAN Official .com or Instagram. So go there. The test is designed to give you an optimal version of yourself. So there's things that we know that are beyond what's in the report that the FDA won't let us say, right? So
Right.
that requires us working with you. Just like yourself as a doctor, there's certain things that people can only get from you and not from the nurse, for example, right? So same thing with our testing. You get the report. It's a good to bring you to your optimal self if you want to just have some longevity and better habits. But if you want to say, hey, I don't want breast cancer, or my mom had Alzheimer's, I don't want that, or I have crazy gut issues, I can't get out of bed, clinical stuff, we can dive a lot deeper. That's where I would say reach out to me through Instagram or through the website, and I'll get the right person to support you.
Okay, so give
Fantastic.
everybody your website and your Instagram one more time.
Sure, it's KASHKHAN official.com, or the same thing for Instagram, Kashkhan Official.
Perfect.
And Instagram is where I go for my daily rant. It's kind of like everything we see in the clinic that I need to vent about. I just talk about it there.
Well, I follow you and I love it.
I got two questions for you. Well, one is
Sure.
a question I ask everybody, but that'll be the second question. The first question is why do you hate bananas so much? I love bananas. You're killing me.
Hey,
I eat
don't
bananas.
kill the messenger.
What
I
is
eat
it about,
bananas.
seriously,
I'll give-
what is it about bananas that it impairs absorption of what exactly?
So when you blend your phytonutrients that we were just talking about, so what typically people dump everything in their smoothie, right?
Yeah, it's
And
me.
it's convenient, it's efficient, all this stuff. But when you blend a banana with those blueberries, raspberries, those potent phytonutrient foods, it prevents your body from being able to absorb them. So first of all,
so berries are okay.
yes,
Bananas are
No
not.
berries and
nanners.
bananas are okay. You just don't mix them, right?
Okay.
Got it.
So, and you also keep in mind, our body doesn't realize what year it is. Our body still thinks that we're cave people, and it thinks that's what we're wired for. So it doesn't know that we have blenders,
Okay.
right? It
Right.
thinks that we chew our food and that we chew it slowly, and there's a lot of enzymatic activity that happens in the mouth instead of gulp, gulp, gulp.
Right.
That's the way our body thought the food was going to enter. And so it's not designed to actually deal with it that way. And you're not getting the nutrition that you think you're getting.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I ask all of my guests the same question, nothing to sweat over. And that question is if you had not gone into genetics and genetic modification, clinical applications, what do you think you would have done with your life?
So I was, like I said, helping startups grow. And this was the triangulation of me being sick, me finding an amazing technology that needed support as a startup, and sort of having early childhood exposure to sickness in the family, which was imprinted into my DNA. Because truly, I actually imprint trauma a little more efficiently than other people. That's a genetic trait, by the way. And I can tell you which gene. So I was wired for this to be my aha moment. But if it never happened, if I never met the scientists and the doctors, and I would do what I was doing, which is helping startups grow. And why? Because I love to create, right? I love to take it from zero to some level of success and then move on, right? And even in this company, by the way, we recently hired a CEO. I'm the founder. I'm the biggest shareholder. I created it. What did I do? 3 months ago, we hired a CEO to replace myself because I built it to a certain level. And now we need to integrate in the healthcare industry and with hospitals and clinics like yourself. And I don't claim to be an expert at that. I've built an incredible tool. I took this highly scientific ivory tower isolated product and made it accessible for everybody. Now that the tool is perfected, somebody else can go bring it to where it needs to be, and I'm going to go build the next thing.
Awesome.
And for me, that's women's health, children. These are the two areas where I think the most help, I should say. And so that's what I would be doing. ADHD businessman going on to the next thing.
Well, you and Dr. Brenner should have another show on breast implants and the toxicity in that. Dr. Brenner is a huge proponent of huge BII. He saved my life. So you got to come on. I could sit here and talk to you for hours again. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on, and we look forward to your next endeavors.
Yes.
You'll have to come back and let us know.
Yeah, I'll knock on your door when I'm in town and I'll show you.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Thanks so much,
have a
Cash.
good one, and thank you for being so patient with us and their technical difficulties. Okay.
All right.
Good seeing you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the OR with Dr. Brenner. Make sure to subscribe, like, and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Kevin Brenner MD and KevinBrennerMD.com.